Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm just waiting for Annie, our guest and storyteller for today, to come in. Annie, can you hear me? I also sent you an invite, Annie. I've accepted your video request. It said you're unable to join. I've also sent you a
Hi, can you hear me?
hey. Last week we couldn't see Megan. We didn't have a split screen.
For some reason, I can't see you at the moment, but it's fine. Like, I'm still figuring this out. This is my first live stream as well, so obvious.
Yeah, I thought it's easy to join a live, but I've since discovered that I need to check with people first before they are able to join, because I think they don't know that they must send a request and then I send a request.
No
And
worries.
I'm also still figuring out Instagram, but it's a nice challenge for me. So it's nice to see your screen. Last week it was like radio because it recorded thankfully with the split screen, but um, when we were doing the thing, I couldn't see Megan. I was just looking at myself.
Okay, so it's normal basically because at the same time I'm only seeing my own face. I can't see you at the moment, but if you can see me, then that's fine. Maybe we see each other perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. I can see you, so it as the host, it helps me if I have a visual.
No problem.
Yeah, so I'm happy we got started without a hitch. Uh, oh yeah, I
So
was watching. I was having lunch and catching up on this morning's rugby. So
how did the rugby go, by the way? Sorry, I've been up with debate all the time. I've been busy with debate, so I have no idea what's happening with rugby. At least some good news.
obviously, yeah. My brother, so, what's it? He got it on catch up. So it was. I think it was on at 6:30 this morning. So it was a nice. I had a class earlier from 11 to 1. So yeah. So it went from. It was a nice break. I enjoyed it. Believe me, it's not a drag. So I was discussing contract law and delict law, and the end turned out to be a little bit of succession as well. So after that
Sure. Spectrum of
intensive session, yeah, then I was like, okay, first I get something for my voice, something hot, and then my brother said, oh, let's watch the game. So like, okay. So I just had lunch a little while ago while I was watching the second half. It was a whitewash. I mean, wasn't even a match. But
well, at least
I
it's
get
a
very
recap.
patriotic. I get very patriotic with. I used to like cricket a lot more,
Mm.
but I've gotten very patriotic over rugby. Um,
My family the same way. For some reason, they get so unified. They can have their differences, but when it comes to rugby, they're so unified. But okay, that's the loudest I can hear my family cheer. I don't ever hear them cheer about anything. I quite frankly think they're very boring people. But when it does come to rugby, it's somewhere they saw some kind of energy. Then we're very excited. So I do
that's
feel
good.
the spirit and everything. Yes,
That's
yes.
good. I think sport generally has that. I mean, if you look at the people in the stadium, it's like all colors and like in that
Hmm.
90 minutes, you just have like a single cause to root for. So I think sport has that thing in general, but I think just the way the Springboks have proven themselves, you know, it's like
Definitely.
they earned like the fandom. It's not just because they are a rugby South African rugby team that we support them. It's like they've earned that right or that privilege to be supported and for people to buy the merch. I mean, I'm like borderline thinking of, okay, maybe I can. They won like I think 3 World Cups now back to back. Maybe I can get a shot. Like it's worth it to get a shot. So yeah, it's
Or
I
even
tell
we
my
want to go
brother,
buy merch. Every time we want to go buy merch, whether it's a shirt or even just to get, something to buy. Whenever it's
yeah,
rugby, there's nothing available. Like you have to buy that beforehand. You have to plan. You have to like periodically plan. You have to if you want like Springbok merch, you need to buy out of season. You need to buy when there's no
yeah,
competition or
yeah,
something happening.
yeah,
Beforehand,
yeah,
yeah, you're going to struggle definitely.
yeah, yeah. So I mean I'm not that much of a sports supporter that I will invest in it, but I think they've really proven. And I always seem to come away with some with leadership lessons whenever I watch.
Mm.
I don't know why. I'm very. I think I'm tuned to, especially with rugby. It's like they're gonna make so much split second decisions on the field, and everyone's gonna play in a certain position. You've got to win territory. You've got to convert your stuff into points, and you've got to defend well. Like I feel like of all the games that I've watched, and I used to like cricket, and I like tennis to an extent, but I
Mm.
think when it comes to rugby, it's so like in the moment, it's tactical, it's in your face, you've got guys tackling you.
It's
And
in your
I just picked up something today, like when it comes to a tackle, you don't have to be knocked over by it. I realize that there's a way that you can actually ground yourself in the tackle and actually move the tackle forward, and the person that's trying to push you down, you actually force them to move with you, which I think was like it's a nice lesson. It's like if someone's coming, something is coming at you head on. It's like, okay, you stand your ground, you ground yourself in that situation or whatever, and then it's like, okay, I'm moving forward despite the fact that something is tackling me or something is facing me head on and trying to derail me, which I think is a
It's really cool because like basically what you're describing is not only elegance and style and technique of the person actually doing this on a rugby field, but also what a nice analogy for life actually to like
yeah.
root yourself, ground yourself and push forward no matter how much your adversity is pushing you back basically. So
Yeah, I'm
interesting
that's
takeaway.
the kind of thing. Like I know sometimes it's cheesy to just pick out lessons from everything, but I thought that
Mm.
was quite that's a new thing that I learned today. It's like, okay, and even if whether you're a short person, a tall person obviously has that height advantage. But if you're a short person, I noticed the short players, in order to keep advancing with somebody tackling you, they kind of get that person in a hug, in like a bear hug, and
Yeah.
then you just keep moving forward. You just keep moving forward, like, and of course the ball is somewhere probably tucked under your arm, and so you've got them. You've grounded yourself in that tackle. You got your arms around them, so you're forcing them to stabilize, and you've got the ball with you. So you're moving ahead, and hopefully you get the ball. The ball can win you or win you some territory, or that tackle can win you some territory, whatever. But it's like it's actually like a complete maneuver, and it's like, okay, the tackle is not. You're not supposed to. Imagine if every rugby player got destabilized, or like, with a tackle. And it's like, no, you actually have to keep moving forward, because you got to get as much into the other team's half in order for
Mm.
you to get penalty advantage and things like that. So I think it's a very like rich analogy
It is.
for leadership,
It is
for
everything like you're
life.
saying. Yes.
And I mean, if you look at the guys, like, they'll be bleeding, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
go and sit
But
down.
they're
Like,
still pushing forward. They're still
and
pushing forward.
I was telling my brother, like, imagine if the blood didn't clot. Like, the fact that the blood can clot means that it's just a little cut, on your cheek. You can still continue, because that thing is going to coagulate, and the cut's going to close up. But
Mm.
like, they'll be like, broken nose, bust ear, and blood coming out of their eyes, and they'll be like, like, we'll strap up our knee, we'll strap up our head, and we'll just. It's like we know we have a function, or we have a job to get done, and it's like,
Mm.
okay, blood is nothing. Like, it'll clot, it'll do its thing. just spray it out of my eye or whatever, clear my vision.
I can
I know.
see.
I think in the previous World Cup, not the one that just happened, Andre Pollard missed the victory tour that they did when they got back because in the final he fractured his eye, one of his eye sockets.
Uh,
Like you played that, I don't know when it happened in the game, but it's like, and anyway, he has to kick, and now you have to obviously move your eye within your eye socket, and if your eye socket is cracked somewhere, like like that tenacity, and it's like, okay, I've got to focus, I've got to get a job done. Obviously, it's a national pride thing.
you can
I just
help but have
gotten.
respect for that. Like, how can you not
I'm telling you,
respect that? It's
I'm
pure
telling you, it's like,
passion and love, and also like it's not only the pressure of letting yourself down or your country down, your team down. It's not only that. It's like that's literally having your eye on the ball, having that like the
yeah,
focusing on the game, focusing on the objective, trying to get everything out of the way. Not only the distraction of fans, the high expectations of all the eyes on you,
hmm,
but also the distraction of the pain that you're enduring at this moment. But the thing
yeah,
is, if you want to sit, you can't just go sit. You can obviously have an option to go sit on the bench, and you don't
yeah,
do this because you're severely injured, or you can give
yeah,
it your best. You can push
yeah.
forward, you can try and push forward, and that's so
Mm.
much respect that's owed towards such a person.
Yeah, and I think that's why our team is unique because everyone just latches on like they've got such a nice cohesion, even though they're like white, black, Zulu, Afrikaner. It's like they're all just like it's such a it's such a if you look at the model of like teamwork and even leadership like Sia Kolisi, and it's like there's so many things you can pull from there. Um, and of course, to segue, I didn't plan to use a rugby analogy, but to segue into that, I mean, we're here to discuss CA issues and life as a CA, and I mean, it's one of those qualities that I feel. I mean, it's trumpeted a lot these days. This thing about resilience,
Mm.
and just standing your ground and knowing what you want, having that focus, knowing why you're here, knowing why you're doing what you're doing, why you signed up. That's not it's lacking.
Mm.
And that's very often where we get the whole thing of, it's too hard, or my boss is toxic, when your principal attorney could actually be giving you um, constructive advice, but you don't have the capacity
Mm.
to to say, okay, I did mess up because I don't have the knowledge that my principal attorney has, so I did mess up, but at the same time I can always come back with a better, take
Approach.
his advice and come back, so you have this inability to like stay the course. And even with like things like mentorship and all that, I find, and I scolded them recently on on LinkedIn, and I said, from my own experience, it's not that there's none of these things available. My colleagues, everyone is here to mentor you, but
Mm.
you guys don't have the ability to stay the course. So the
Mm.
moment something comes up, like for example, you don't have Wi-Fi, or uh, some life circumstance comes up, they'd much rather ghost you or fall away than sit and say, okay, yeah, the first arrangement didn't work out. Let me try and figure out how I can do it again. How I can take another run at this,
It's about adapting.
and
It's
then of
about
course if
adapting to
that's
your environment.
yeah, and it's just, again, it's knowing why you got into something,
Mm.
and of course most of the stuff that I do, especially mentorship, it's free. So you're booking my time for free, but if you don't have internet, or say your phone breaks, you don't have the capacity to think, okay, I can get somebody else's phone and rearrange, or let advocate Lisa know, and we can sort of reconfigure the sessions. You'll just drop out,
Mm.
and for me, mentorship, from the time you even in university, it's professional development. You don't have to sign up for some kind of course to say I'm going through professional development.
Mm.
Mentorship, and it's always good to associate yourself with someone like in the year above you, or someone that's at a stage in their career that's a little bit, ahead of you, so that you have somebody that you always challenge. At the same time, you can also see what it takes for them to stay in, And then, of course, last week was Megan's story, and her thing about three firms before she found the sweet spot, before she found a firm that she was comfortable in. And of course, Monday got the double admission in the bag. I mean,
Yes.
that's just crazy, right? So it's like sometimes they can, SCAs can get to the, and we know articles are so hard to get. And so they get to the first firm, and of course it doesn't work out for whatever reason. And it's like, oh, I need to seed my articles now. Well, so in some cases, they just have to abandon it. And it's like, okay, so my articles is finished now. I'm like, it's over. Like I got stalled. And of course, in Megan's story, I mean, it showed her tenacity, and of course that go getter. Like, I'm gonna get this thing done, even if I gotta find as many go through as many firms as I can. But I know why I'm doing this. I know, and of course, it's important to keep yourself motivated more than other people from the outside. And so, I mean, she persevered, and of course, the fruits of that perseverance uh, are that she got a double admission, which by just getting your admission as an attorney by itself, probably in that first firm, if she thought about getting admitted, she probably would have been like, that's like the bare minimum I can do, which would have still been fine, But I think that tenacity, just bouncing back, bouncing back, bouncing back. I always say that thing is like working a muscle. The more times you bounce back, the more capacity you build for hardship. And so you might find that even every time you bounce back, you're coming back with a little bit more muscle capacity. And so every time it's like, okay, I can lift a little bit more. I can lift a little bit more. We're looking at a gym analogy. Because every time now you're conditioning your muscles to take on something heavier and heavier. And then your capacity now is like, oh, my muscles are used to 6 kilograms, so I'm going to go to 7. It's used to 7, I'm going to go to 8. And that's those repeated setbacks. So by the time you actually come to the end, you find that you can even surprise yourself, like in Megan's case, and achieve far more than you thought was possible, where you would have said, oh, I'm just going to get the attorney thing done. But, I guess she had built capacity, coming to the third firm and like realizing, hey, wait, I actually have the capacity now to go beyond the bare minimum. I can actually make this journey worthwhile and get the double admission, which I mean is still like is like goals, right? So, and then of course today we're here to hear your story, which from our 4-hour call, I know there's a lot there's a
Yes.
lot to unpack. What turned out to be a meeting or initial call turned out to be a 4-hour chat, and everything was getting dark, and uh,
It was a needed chat.
and
It
you had
was
to
just a
get
needed
home.
chat.
Yeah, yeah. It was a Friday too, so it was warranted. We all needed to
Yes.
unwind
And I
on a
enjoyed it very
Friday.
much.
So yeah, there's a lot to share, and I think we want to share stories and we want to provide tools. I think that's the bare minimum, because people connect a lot with stories. I was just telling my student today, like, even if you think reading cases, reading case law, those are stories. Those are stories out of which, the law is developed and you get a certain ruling or certain legal principle comes out of a case. But the fact that it's ensconced in a story means that, you want to read it, you want to listen, as opposed to somebody just giving you the principles. So
Exactly.
we wanna humanize this journey of becoming a lawyer. That's why my podcast is called Lawyers with Stories. Is the whole part of it is to part of the goal is to humanize people that we tend to idolize to say that, there's a lot that went on behind the scenes. My quotable quote is, every fairy tale has a backstory. So no matter how elevated you might think the person is or put together, more often than not, it's come at a price. It's come with a lot of pain of different kinds. So we want to hear those stories. I want to hear your story. I want your story to do whatever it needs to do with people who are listening, and will listen even more times on YouTube when I upload it there. And of course, we want tools, we want takeaways where people will say, that part of Annie's journey is doable for me. It's applicable to me. Yeah, I feel I can. It's a small step, but I can certainly start. I can start implementing that thing. So we're having a chat. We're empowering. We are equipping. Okay, so let the games begin, and let the
Totally.
best come of this interaction.
Let's hope. So let me start with the story then, because I have no idea actually what this story is about. And I think there's quite a few stuff that I would like to touch upon. But firstly, I would like to say that I'm honored to be here, to be a part of this initiative in the first place. Because one thing that you have said that struck me very deeply was a word, humanizing this process. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
true. That's really true, because if you ask Annie from high school, for example, why she wanted to become a lawyer, okay, and that was practically the most rosy version of why I wanted to be a lawyer. I always
Mm-hmm.
thought I had a voice, a strong voice, and I had the ability to stand up for people who needed to be stood up for.
Mm-hmm.
And due to having that personality qualities, you also thought that there's so much injustice in the world, basically. And as you're growing up, you thought you had the ability to see these injustices for what it was, and other people just seem to skim over it. They just seem to like to complain about this. But you actually have active ideas about how we can change this. You have a drive, you have a motivation, and actually have a passion for people to try and correct the injustices you see in the world. But yet again, that's a rosy colored version of what I would have told you 10 years ago, starting the idea of wanting to become a lawyer. But at my interview at my firm that I'm with now, not going to name names, for example, just to keep it very
Yeah.
open. But to be honest, I had to change my approach and to say that if you're going to center everything around the thing that you want to address, the injustice of the world, that's the
Mm-hmm.
core of it, the silver line, the golden thread that you need to keep hanging on to. I don't want to tell you to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you have to be truthful with yourself. Like you said, Advocate Lisa, you have to be truthful about yourself and have to know exactly why am I here and what am I actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because by the time I got to matric, I had the opportunity to rather go and study biochemistry at the University of Pretoria or to study law at Potch. And I made the split decision and I went for law because I honestly felt that even though you're a balanced person, my personality would not fit in any other sphere. This is where I want to
Mm-hmm.
be. I still want to address all the injustices in the world,
Yeah.
but I do need to remember that we're not superheroes, okay? And I think that's something that we do tend to think that,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you look at doctors, if you look at lawyers, if you look at all these
Mm-hmm.
people, because we do set out to challenge the boundaries of the world, what we see as dynamic, what we see as moral, what we see as progressing as a society. And it's our job to press those boundaries. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we have this cape around our necks, this unrealistic expectation of thinking that, listen, if I'm not able to address all these injustices, I'm automatically a failure. And that's why I want to talk about the humanizing this aspect, humanizing the journey of becoming a attorney, of going through your university turbulence, going from university that's an isolated, controlled environment over to the real world, beginning your candidacy, and then again, like Megan with success, going out of your candidacy, and you think that the fear is over, but now you're entering a new sphere, beginning as a
Mm-hmm.
junior attorney. and then climbing the ladder from there. So in other words, it was such an amazing journey to start actually. I'm going to get to that point a little bit further on, but I just want to pay homage to Megan and say that as well. If I did not have the opportunity to get into a firm, for example, where I'm just starting my candidateship now, and she was actually basically finishing her candidateship, I was privileged to have somebody who went through all that pressure and knew how it felt to be thrown to the sharks. Like we already said, she had the tenacity to bounce back from 3 firms, basically. But to spare me that and to warn me beforehand, listen, it isn't what they promise you on TV. Yeah, sure, it can be like Suits and the drama series you see. But listen, it's a love-hate marriage relationship you have with litigation and what you have with law, basically. You love the job, but you're going to have to pay the price. And unfortunately, it's a long process that you have to go through. And she came with her approach and she said she does not want any other candidate attorney to feel the way that she has felt beforehand. And I don't think other candidates have that privilege where somebody would come in and take you under their wing and make sure that you are taken care of. You know what's going on before she had to move on, because we have to realize as well, even though she was trying to help me as best as she could, and she did a wonderful job. So much so that I'm operating with her, we're working great together, and we're even trying to juggle her intern, trying to give our knowledge over to the intern as well. But I had to remember that while this is going on, she was busy with preparing for her board exams. So even though she was finishing her candidacy, and she was mentoring me basically, the pressure was overwhelming on her as well. She didn't always have the time to give to me, to assist me in every aspect, because you need to remember I'm a scared candidate, knowing nothing, absolutely asking the most ridiculous questions, but she was very attentive, no matter what I needed, in spite of her being so overburdened. And then it's going to go over to the fact that now she's passed the bar and she has gotten a double admission and she has set expectations so high and she's doing amazing. But just as one fear hurdle has been passed, she's now facing a new beginning again, starting as a junior attorney. And even though it's scary as hell, I just have to say the amount of respect that I have for this woman, not only taking on one challenge after another, making sure that she's accommodating as much people as she can at that stage, but also now, as she has gotten to the point of success, she's not afraid of starting over. And she's going to start with her own vision, her own perspective, how she wants it to be shaped, to start pushing those boundaries, as we said. But before we get to pushing the boundaries, being the heroes that we want to be, and that, let's talk about the humanizing aspects of this story. So, very freaking long intro, but hi everybody, if you're joining now and if it's necessary, welcome to my TED Talk. My name is Annie de Kok, and I'm very honored here to be with Advocate Lisa to talk about the journey of going through university, starting your candidateship, and all the horror stories. Actually, I can give you new horror stories, or I can confirm and deny some horror stories. I don't know. But today's story is not a story about, not necessarily only about persevering. It's not a story about how much you can endure. It's not a story about success, how much adversity can be thrown to you and how much you can handle on your plate. That's not what my story is about. I can't tell you what my story is about, but I can tell you this. This is my story. This is where I came from. And the purpose of this story is not necessarily only to drive you, because you don't have to necessarily go through what I've went through, or what Megan went through, or who anybody will go through that's going to feature on this channel. It's just to say that I felt so alone through my journey. And if I could have heard this from somebody else, that would have helped so much. And if something can resonate with somebody else, then that's enough. And that's why I'm honored to be here today. And that's why I'm saying thank you if you're sticking out with me and listening to my very long story. So to start out, I'm going to be honest. For a very, very long period of my life, I'm going to say most of my life, maybe when I was smaller, I can't really remember. It might have been a different story. But from most that I can remember, I lived a very comfortable life. I would say maybe privileged even, but um, in that frame of reference, you didn't really know how privileged you were until that privilege was removed. So even though I grew up very comfortably, my dad, very old, lost his job in 2016 in my matric year. So basically, the year that you were deciding which courses or which path are you going to follow in your life? What are you going to study? What are you going to do? And I decided that year I wanted to go and study law, for example. And we all know that going to university is not cheap. Okay, it's daunting. It's expensive. It's not only the expenses of actually getting your admission done or getting admitted for your course. It's a coursework itself. It's living costs. It's actually just surviving at university. It's leaving your nest. It's leaving your home. Okay. So when I went to university, I started with my BCom law degree because I loved corporate law. I loved everything economics. I loved business. I thought that was my strong suit. But how I started basically was I did not have the money to go do that. My parents were blacklisted, and we had to ask my aunt to borrow us some money just so that I can actually go to university. So she paid the registration. She paid a few classes, but she didn't actually contribute to housing or to study materials and stuff like that. So you made it. That was the first hurdle I had the first challenge I had to face basically. High school was easy. You just knew that if you performed in marks and you were in the safe space of your parents' home and you had your peers around you and stuff like that kept you motivated. In university, you moved away from that safe environment, and you quickly realized you needed to figure out what you're going to do next. And basically how I could afford to continue studying, to basically make sure that I have enough money for electricity, for food, and to buy textbooks. I started taking up extra jobs. For example, I started coaching university debates even while I was speaking myself. And I started coaching high school debate for the high school that's right next to the NWU, Potchefstroom Gymnasium, just to get what I like to call chump money, basically. It was just chump money. And what I would do with the chump money was I would selectively sit there and I would plan out, okay, this could go to rent, this could go for that. And after all the essentials were paid, you were left with absolutely nothing. So you would sit with your friends and think, okay, fine, I'm a quick learner. I would borrow these textbooks from my friends if they study first. And if they're done studying, then I'll take their textbooks and I'll study from that, basically. Or if they're planning to study later, I'll study first and I'll crunch my time so that they can have it afterwards. But you would use that chump money to selectively look at which subjects were the more difficult subjects and the more costly subjects, and you would buy those textbooks. For example, constitutional law or economics textbooks and stuff like that. So it was difficult. It was really, really difficult getting through your first degree, and you're not properly equipped to do that. You were relying on your notes for class, and it was also difficult getting to class all the time because you weren't staying in a hostel, you weren't staying close to class, you had to walk dangerous miles. So it doesn't really matter. But soon you realized, okay, it's not necessarily easy. You already had to go the extra length, you had to go the extra mile to make sure that you're able to study by doing all these extra jobs, all these extra tasks to have enough money to continue your studies. But you started to realize that law wasn't as easy as you thought it should be, basically. You required your study material that was given to you in class. That was very helpful. But not having the extra material was actually make or break for you. So you got mediocre marks, but you didn't do the best, basically. So after my BCom, I decided to go over to my LLB. Okay, I got opportunity, all the debt was paid off. I registered for my LLB, still a lot of study debt, but started studying with my LLB, same situation for 3 years. Up and down, But as I continued more, he started coaching more hostels, and the more hostels he started coaching, the more money he made, and the more teams I started coaching at the high school, the more money he started making. And even he started working for Nova Life, like calling up people, trying to sell them insurance and stuff like that, anything just to have money to continue your studies. Because that's where I started realizing, even though I had mediocre marks, they're not necessarily fail marks, but they're not something to brag about at home. You realize there's such immense competition in the field of law that those marks of a BCom degree, even though they weren't failed marks, they weren't good enough. And that was soul crushing. Really, it was soul crushing because you knew you had the capacity to do better. You just weren't enabled. You didn't have the means to do better, basically. And now you have these marks and you know that they need to be better due to how highly competitive the legal market is and how oversaturated the legal market is. And you know you're at a disadvantage because other people have better marks. They don't necessarily work as hard as that you basically worked, but still, you're going to have to do something about that. So when I started my LLB, I remember putting so much pressure on me to try and rectify that, to make sure that you get a distinction for every subject that you can, as much as possible. So I overdid it. I coached so many hostels, I coached so many debates kids, I did Nova Life, I did everything so that I can get as much study material as possible. I studied so hard. I was awarded with a golden key, and I was awarded the highest achiever in medical law, for example, and you did so great. You did really, really great. Even got a distinction for your mini dissertation. In my final year, and like I told you guys, this is not necessarily about how much you can take on or how many adversity you can endure. But there were so many moments of thinking, what should I do about this? How can I improve myself? And by doing that, I have to say, I'm impressed with myself by taking on that much work outside of my studies, just to enable my studies to improve basically so that I can be an improved candidate when I enter the labor force so that I can have a competing advantage. But that's what I want to bring back to the humanizing aspect of that. I don't know if that standards or if that expectations are as heavy in other fields. It might be. I can't talk about other fields that way. But I can say that that was something that I did not expect. I did not expect that. I did not expect the challenges that came with university, with not having the financial advantage, with not having all this given to you in a silver platter, but also having this competitive advantage of being, saying, if you're not the cream of a corn, basically, if you're not the top up student there, you're not an honor student, then you can basically kiss your degree goodbye. It's a very expensive piece of toilet paper that was very dismotivating for me, very unmotivating for me. And you had all the certificates, you had the degrees, you had the distinctions, you had golden key, you had highest achiever, but it didn't really help you in any sense. So you decided to go on with these great marks because then my dad, for the first time, like I mentioned in the beginning, he was unemployed. And then in 2020, when COVID struck, where many people lost their jobs, my dad was fortunate enough to come to me and say that he has an opportunity to be a project manager again. And I was excited for him, but my dad has a get rich quick kind of scheme thing of doing things. And basically what it entailed, instead of it being good news saying, I have this business, it was more of a proposal asking, like, I want this business to actualize and I don't know how to manifest it. Can you help me? Now you're in your final year of your LLB studies basically, and I don't know, for people who are still busy with their LLB, people who are contemplating doing their LLB, your final year is going to be your most busy year. You decide actively which subjects you're taking, and that year I decided to go full on corporate. So you were like banking law, estates, everything that was tax law, everything that was very, very intense, insurance, everything like that. Something that was not the best choice. Okay, it was the best choice because you wanted to daunt yourself, you wanted to challenge yourself, but also you have to factor in, yet again, like I was talking about, the fact that you want to be the superhero, a superhero with a cape. I can do this, I can challenge this, I have a capacity, do this. But you're coaching 4 hostels and you're speaking debate yourself and you're coaching like 8 speakers for Gummies, and you've dropped Nova Life now, and now you're here with your dad's business proposal, and this business proposal entailed him creating, or not creating, building a psychiatric hospital in Poch. So what happened was I had to instantly jump because there was deadlines that he had to meet. I had to help him create this company. We had to register with the CIPC, get tax registered. I immediately started recruiting workers, 27 laborers, and we had to make sure they were registered for UIF, had to do the contracts for them, had to handle any labor disputes, and we got quite a good team, a favorable team, a team that worked together so well that we made such great progress building this hospital. Sorry, I derailed a bit. In your final year of LLB, you're choosing a subject. So I chose these very intensive subjects, but also you have a mini dissertation that you have to do in the end of the year. So it's basically like a mini thesis that you write about. So it takes up quite a lot of your research time as well, your free time. That you're not supposed to use for class, you're supposed to use for this research. And that's where I didn't take into consideration you're coaching all these hostels, you're coaching all these debate kids for extra money, and now basically using this opportunity to help your dad, not only to get a job, but this can also bring income to finally pay off my BCom and LLB degree debt, and that can be finalized. So we got a very good team. We all worked together quite well, and since the progress of the hospital went well, they started asking us, okay, can we, since the bricklaying went so well, can we go over and build the guardhouse? Can we go over and build the extra units? Can we go over and do the skirting of the roof? So what was supposed to take up 3 months of my time turned out to take almost my whole final year of my LLB. But I'm happy that I did that. I really am happy that I did do that, because I could say that I could pay off all my study dates. I could say that I got a lot of experience in company law. I got experience in intellectual property law. I got experience in labor law and how you can do this. So it was an adversity. It was something that was thrown your way. You didn't have the time. You didn't have the capacity. You didn't know where to start. I was 22 years old, and your father figure coming to ask you to do this, and you had no idea how to start. You had to jump in, realize how to start a company, how to get tax registered, how to get your interpersonal skills to that level to work with so many people and get them to respect you as a young woman, because we don't realize that not only in law, but still as a young woman. I don't want to exclude any men out there, and I don't want to say anything like that, but still that was daunting. And I don't think necessarily down to sexism, but quite something unexpected to see a little girl running up and down. And to them, it might be funny, but to me, it was a make or break. It was a make or break whether or not I'm going to succeed as a lawyer. And I'm happy to say that it turned out well. After that, I got an opportunity to continue with my master's, since I already paid off my debt for my BCom and my LLB. I was offered a bursary from the NWU to study intellectual property, because I did really well. I was one of the top performers in intellectual property, and I had quite a passion for it. And since it was a bursary, and I thought maybe this would help me specialize in my field, because even though, that's where I was also bringing back the humanization of it, even though you were working so hard by trying to generate an extra income, to not only just to keep you afloat personally, but to actually fund your personal or your professional growth. and you got these high marks. I got high marks. My marks, my BCom degree was still haunting me. That was so stupid though. Every time you would send in the CV, they didn't care about the fact that you were a golden key achiever in your LLB. They didn't care if you were a top achiever in your field. They didn't care about any about that. They were wondering about the fact, why was the first 3 years, the cumulative of all your marks, why were the first 3 years not as good as your final 4 years? Even though it's two separate degrees, it doesn't matter to them. They're looking at your whole law journey. And to look at that on a paper trail, for example, they don't give you opportunity to speak human to human and say, listen, that first degree, that first 3 years, I was fighting to be able to study. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily the cream of a crop marks, but guess what? I passed, and I passed with quite a lot of with a lot of perseverance. And look at my second degree. Why aren't we discussing that? Why are we completely ignoring the progress that's been made? No, it's almost, you're almost treated as a liability. That was so unfair for me. And that's when I thought, okay, let me go and do the masters. Let's take the bursary. Let's do the masters. You're not losing out on anything. And that was great. I had the most amazing supervisor, Klaus Bater. He's affiliated with the Planck Institute. He's affiliated with quite a lot of international platforms, actively working on how to try and get South Africa's intellectual property law up to standard with WIPO Convention. And I think it's just very interesting, especially if you talk about the right to education, if you talk about the right to health. It has so much, intellectual property has so much intricacies with human rights, basically. So it reignited a passion within me. And starting then, my master's would be a 2-year master's. And we decided to frame it around the global pandemic. And I wanted to make it something about how international relations actually dictates the things, and how the global south and the global north are separated from one another. There's a gap, a vaccination gap. And this is caused due to how intellectual property is ordered in the global north, and how the global south is basically being left behind. And if not everybody is safe, then nobody is safe. So he proposed a new health treaty. And this proposal went very well, actually. So much so that my supervisor took the proposal and he sent it to one of his colleagues from the Washington College of Law, and they were very impressed and they wanted to onboard me. So 3 months into my master's, they asked me would I like to go over in August to America to study part-time a master's degree in intellectual property, concentrated in intellectual property and in cyber law, and then work part-time as a researcher for the WIPO Convention. It was all part of a protection of information fellowship, justice league, or something like that. Not just league, I can't remember the whole abbreviation. I feel a bit stupid now, but anyway. And you were very excited because that was steering me a bit away, because always you thought you were going to be a lawyer, you were going to do this, that, that. You never really explored the idea of going into research, into law, until your supervisor opened that door for you. And thinking of how that thing of where I told you about the injustices you see in the world and how you can address them and how you can improve them. And I thought, well, since I'm not given an opportunity due to my BCom not being up to scratch versus my LLB, then if I can't correct injustices as a superhero with a cape around my neck, as a lawyer fighting in court, then why not be like Klaus? Be like one of the researchers that partakes in the conventions and talk about how we can reformulate the law and what are the challenges of the current law, and be a part of that discussions and debates. That's how we can correct stuff. That's how we can move it forward. So you can see you got excited again. You reignited that passion. But that, again, that's where you start to, where you need to ask that question. And I think that was very prominent in previous discussions that Advocate Lisa had, especially also with Megan. You brought it out as well about when you should take a pause a bit. And Megan said something that struck me to the core. where you as a lawyer, when you're in this profession, you think that you should wear your burnout as a badge of honor. And I can't really tell you how much that hurts, actually, because it's true. It's true. Because that's what happened. Because I see also one of my friends joined our live stream here that knows about the situation. Hey, Taz. And anyway, so she knows about the situation because that's how Taz and I met. Um, I was 3 months into my master's with a in WU. And I thought I can push a 2 years master's into 8 months. And I will finish my master's before I have to go to America. And then I will start my new master's there. Okay, and everything did go well. It did go well. The pressure was overwhelming. I did everything I could. But it wasn't only just the fact that you need to prepare for a whole new direction shift or the fact that you're leaving home and everything like that. Um, I was uncertain because was I really ready to abandon the idea of doing your articleships and just jump into another 2 year degree, and getting another master's? Will this help me? Yes, of course, the exposure will help you, but this will send you more into a research direction. Is that really what you want to do? That internal conflict of what you should do. And I just made peace with, okay, fine. I do feel like this is something where I can make a change and have my voice heard. And as 8 months was coming, I was already starting to pay rent in America. Yeah. So when basically I was on my way to America, everything was ready. I was paying rent for the place there. I started paying medical there. You have to pay medical there. If you don't pay for a medical aid there, they won't allow you on campus, and that's extremely expensive. So the bursary covered everything except your living expenses and your medical aid. That should have been covered with your internship, basically the money that you should generate, but only money you can get once you start working. Okay, so Omicron hit us. So when Omicron hit us, the travel restriction was put on South Africa. All my plans were up in the air. I had nothing. I didn't know what to do. We didn't know exactly how long the restrictions were going to be. I just knew that classes are starting. I was missing orientation. They said they would accommodate me. Don't worry, they'll get somebody to help me with orientation afterwards. It doesn't matter. Okay, still the restriction is on. Still losing money, paying for not to lose my place there, paying medical aid for aid that I'm not using, and everything at my house is packed up. The Sims was an issue, and I was just running with this thing of saying basically that you have to do this. If you don't do this, then you're a failure. I was scared. I'm going to be honest. I was scared. It's uncharted territory, but you're trying to look like the superhero you've always dreamed about being able to be on a global stage, being able to talk about these things, making a change from the inside. And my body's check engine light was on, and you just decided to ignore it and continue to run on fumes. And I crashed. So that's where Taz and I met as well. I crashed completely in the sense that I could not, my body gave up. I could not keep anything down. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I was dehydrated. I got a condition called acidosis where you have way too much acid in your body, and I could not sort out the problem myself. I was in and out of the hospital for maybe 3 months, and then I stabilized just again to be hospitalized for 2 months after that, and then again, and so forth and so forth. So you lost your dream. You lost an opportunity that I can't say many people will get or have. But I'm going to tell you this: never stop reaching. Always do that. Let's hope that there's no pandemic again. The irony of it all being is that I wrote about pandemics and the pandemic actively interfered. But I got to a place where all the intakes for the big five firms, because that's where you thought you would want to land and what you were working for, because now you have 3 degrees, you have quite a good accumulation of marks. You have shown that you are hardworking. You've ran a whole project on your own. You've helped build a hospital. You've coached so many people with debate and stuff like that. That sounds good. I mean, she should be an amazing litigator, shouldn't she? That kind of stuff. Yes, but when starting, my English was broken, very broken, and I had no idea where to start. And the intake periods of the big five firms were basically in the 2022 year, while I was in the hospital as well. So they didn't do informal intakes. And any other firm that you applied to, they all had a question about the gap in your CV. Why were you a year out of action? What did you do in that year? And nobody really gave you the opportunity to explain that there was personal circumstances involved, because they were like, oh, you have all this is that, you have this certificate, you're doing that course, you have this, that, but now everything is questionable because you have a gap in your CV. And them always looking at your CVs as a paper trail, basically. That's how they're interviewing you before they decide you're worth it to have an interview with you. It was heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. You just overcame the fact that, okay, fine, you didn't have the best marks for your LLB, so you made up with your BCom, so you made up with your LLB. And then you went on to try and better yourself for masters, and you completely crashed. And after that, you're still questioned. You're still, how much harder should I work? How much more of myself should I give just to be given an opportunity? And that's where I was so lucky to be given my first opportunity with Megan and the firm that I am with now. The first people who were willing to say, listen, okay, we looked at your CV, and they were honest with me. They were honest. So she told me, we wanted to contact you a few months ago, but we didn't, due to the fact that it was funny that you had a gap in your CV there. And then we saw you reapplied, and you still look like somebody that we want to contact. So we thought of taking a chance to ask you, to call you and come in and ask you what happened there. And I had the opportunity to tell them. And having that opportunity to say that, listen, guys, I've been trying for a very long time, and I didn't know when to press pause. And due to not being able to press pause, because I thought pressing pause would mean automatic failure, that would mean that you're incapable. But that's not true. The fact that I pushed myself to that limit to try and be this idea of what an attorney should be, that actually made me incapable of performing my duties. And I think that's something that's very important for me. But that's a thing. That's transitioning from university to actually becoming a lawyer. So I wanted to thank my firm, and I wanted to thank Megan, being my supervisor, for taking me under her wing and listening to me, and knowing that she found something that she appreciated in me, and I found comfort with her. And the amount of things that she has taught me, I don't think other candidates necessarily would have that opportunity. I want to tell candidates out there who are still busy with their studies and who want to transition. There are going to be times when you feel like you have to be the superhero, but circumstances aren't allowing you to do it. Or, you know what, imposter syndrome it's very, very real, okay? And it is a saturated market. It is a competitive market, and we have to know something about our personalities. There's a reason why we're all studying law. We have a same personality type. We're always abrasive as hell, okay? So it's going to be competitive. Nobody's going to be there to try and hold your hand. Teamwork is teamwork's what makes your dream works, but essentially you're working against one another, and that's a culture that needs to die. A culture that really needs to die. And I do hope that by talking about these experiences, by humanizing these experiences, that we can actually address the toxicity and address this thing of overcompensating to try and make yourself worthy enough to appeal to these firms. But that was enough about complaining about studying, basically. All that I wanted to say is just don't give up. Don't, if it's necessary, take a pause and reflect and see what's needed to redirect. But don't see it as a reflection of yourself. Don't see it as a failure, because my life is starting now. And starting as a candidate now, I feel behind, obviously. I mean, a lot of people my age are already getting admitted, and that's something I had to deal with. And a lot of my friends are getting admitted that I was studying with, but I also have to deal with the fact that I was studying an extra degree. So there's trade-offs. You can't continuously compare yourself with people, and you can't continuously look back on those mistakes. You have to continuously move forward. Like we talked about the rugby analogy, when it pushes you back, keep pushing forward. I feel like this is going to become a meme. This must not become a meme. But anyway, so something that's important is when you go through all that and you face rejection so many times and you felt like you've worked so hard to try and circumvent everything that you've been told why you've been rejected, to try and circumvent that in the future, you start to make yourself smaller. You start to lose your voice. That's a big mistake. A big mistake. I've only been a candidate for 4 months. And that's why I'm saying I had so much to learn on the job here. And as exciting as it has been, it's been nerve-wracking as hell. And it's good to have community around you. For example, I do have an amazing colleague that's here with me on my live stream today that has helped me more than once. Even if it's by me popping into her office and saying that stuff is getting too much, or you know what, I have no freaking idea what I'm doing, or just having that human conversation about her coming in saying, you know what, I'm tired, I just wrote the bar, I just did this, I just did that, I don't know how to do this either. Let's figure it out together. That's something that I've quite enjoyed a lot. That humanized the experience so much for me, to hear somebody that's been through this turmoil, and I'm seeing them going through the trenches, and I know that this is a foreshadowing for me. I have to do the same that this amazing colleague of me is doing, hands down. That's so intimidating. And that's why it's like she's doing it hands down. But then there's such human moments where she can come to me and she would say, I have no idea either. Let's figure it out together. That brings so much self-worth to the table. It makes the experience so much more human to know that you don't always know which side is up or which side is down. But if you do have the teamwork, if you do eliminate that poisonous, if you can realize that this is a competitive sphere, but we should not compete against one another. We should compete against opposition. We should try and push forward together as well. That's something that's great. But losing our voice, that's the thing that I wanted to touch on the most. I think the scariest experience for me, and Megan's going to laugh on the stream as well, was the push to get my right of appearance, to go to court, actually, to be able to appear in court. And what happened was the LPC took very long to get my right of appearance, and it was very serious because we had a client that was in dire need of representation, and not me or Megan accepted the mandate. It was an attorney that was working at our firm prior to us. So basically, we had to continue with the matter. and see it through. So not one of us accepted the mandate. So when I got my right of appearance under a lot of pressure, a lot of crying, a lot of fighting with our LPC, I got it in time, just like 2 days before my first appearance. And going to my first appearance, like Megan told me, this is even intimidating for her, even for her, because usually people would say the first appearance is your marital matter or something like a delict or something like that. But my first appearance in court was culpable homicide, and that was terrifying. That was very terrifying, and getting to court basically, and this being your first experience, and you have no idea what you're doing. You're just following instructions, and you think, okay, fine, you're going to stand there at front. You're going to prove yourself because yes, this is your first appearance. It's a freaking high profile case. It is culpable homicide. You're a junior, you're a baby face here, but you can show them that poison comes in small packages, and you can do this. And I confidently stood there at front with my broken English, as you can hear, as my nerves are getting worse. But anyway, standing at front there, and to realize that you didn't have a court gown on. She is me. She is me. I had to run back. I had to go get my court gown and then stand there again. But as funny as that situation was, I hope that some people can giggle if you do feel that your first appearance was horrible in your life. Okay, remember, it wasn't a culpable homicide being your first appearance, and please remember your robe, please remember your curtsy, please remember how you address like your worship, remember all those rules, because it was intimidating but funny afterwards, because it might have been embarrassing, but you learned. But that's what I wanted to address. So we didn't accept a mandate for this appearance exactly, because it was a previous attorney's matter that specialized more in criminal law, and I feel like that's where I lost my voice as well, and also the pressure of showing that you are capable and able took over a bit, and it's important because when I initially said when I started my journey studying law that I wanted to do corporate and commercial and stuff like that, but nothing ever related to criminal law. Reason being, there's nothing wrong with criminal law. I just know that I feel that I don't have enough knowledge regarding criminal law, and I don't want any ethical quandaries or something like that regarding that. So that was just a personal choice for me. And your first appearance was something that went against a personal choice of yours. But you felt that you couldn't decide what would be your first appearance. So you went with it. And then it really came into play when you realized that, okay, you have your mentors, you have your principal, you have everybody in your firm to help you, but you need to realize you're clueless, you're completely clueless, okay? And they can help you with the smaller things, but nobody specialized in criminal law at that stage. And that made you very worried because you had to find out how to navigate this, not alone necessarily, but with confusion and with a lot of fear, because you have to realize that even though if you're able to do this, number one, you can prove to your firm that you're a capable, adequate candidate, that they did make the right choice by hiring you. Wow, your first appearance, culpable homicide, you did freaking well. But what are you doing? Where's your heart? Where's your voice? Because there's so much more at stake than your status. It's literally somebody's life in your hands. The outcome of your performance today has an outcome on that person's life. And you should have been able to say, no, I don't want my first appearance to be a culpable homicide. Or maybe this should be shifted because, or something else. Maybe I should have been more vocal regarding help. Maybe he should have done, but it went well. Everything went well. Okay, the matter was dealt with well. I made myself heard later on, and the matter was dealt with. Megan assisted me as well, so we can turn over the matter to attorneys who had more experience in criminal law. But you need to remember, you took a gamble, and it wasn't in the best interest of your client, and that's something that I have to live with as well. I'm lucky that I didn't do anything too stupid or anything whatever like that, and luckily we could postpone, luckily we could do that, luckily I had my very wonderful mentor also there rooting for me, worried with me. But still, guys, speak up. Don't let your worth of trying to prove yourself that you're capable of doing something outweigh your truth to admit that maybe you aren't equipped to do this. Um, and also realize that you can lean on your colleagues, but they're also dealing with a work-life balance, and they can tend to everything that they have to. And it requires from you to actually put in the hours, to put in the work yourself, to show that you're willing to learn. Asking questions is a beginning point to show that you're willing to learn. But you putting in the work, even though you're drafting something like a letter of demand, I'm like still trying to master like doing summonses without making mistakes, small mistakes, stupid mistakes, referencing mistakes, citation mistakes. The point is you still make mistakes, but at least try. Don't go bother your principal or your colleague constantly by asking them to spoon feed you because they have their own work that they have to deal with as well. At least try. Try drafting it. Try, make free versions of it if it's necessary. Bring the best version to your principal or to your colleague or to your director, it doesn't matter. Ask, make sure that it's up to scratch before sending it out. I thought I knew nothing because I think the biggest thing when you struggle when you get into the workplace is you have to accommodate, you have to climatize towards a workplace environment. And I'm lucky to say that I'm in a firm that's very more laid back. For example, Megan, when she started her firm, it wasn't necessarily a work culture that worked for her, but I was lucky enough to step into a culture that was very not too demanding from me to accommodate them, but who was also accommodative towards me. But luckily, we had personalities that gelled well with one another. We have a small community. When stuff does get a bit overwhelming, we step out, we talk about our issues, what's necessary. But what we have, we know that's special. We know that's something that we don't get everybody that's in every firm, and that's what we want to do with these diaries, basically, to try and initiate this kind of culture, to abolish the toxic culture of thinking that you should wear burnout as a badge of honor. We should abolish toxicity between colleagues and unnecessary competition for that, and start building community to work together towards a goal, and also not to also take a step back when things are getting too much, whether it's your workload or personal life, because life, like something that Lisa and I discussed, that there's something that stuck with me is the fact that your personal life and your married life, everybody talks about having a work-life balance. That's something that's not necessarily true. Your work and your personal life is very married with one another. And you need to find peace in how you're going to handle that, because it's going to happen where your personal life does spill into your work life. But you need to know how to mitigate that. And it's going to happen where your professional life does flow into your personal life. You need to know how to mitigate that. I'm finding my feet now. I've been considering, when should you take a pause? When should you stop? But at no point do I feel like if I should stop, that means that you're a failure. There's nothing wrong with stopping, recalibrating, figuring out what you want to do, leaning on colleagues. If I didn't have Megan, for example, I don't know if I would have known about PLTs. I don't know if I would have known about this opportunity. I don't know about networking, and that's the thing. That's what we want to promote. let's stop over glamorizing the profession. Let's humanize it. Let's start building support structures, networks for people. And again, we started teaching, we started onboarding an intern now recently. And it's been quite difficult actually because our firm is busy, very, very busy at the moment. Maybe it's a time of the year, I don't know, but it's picked up right by the time the intern joined, basically. And since she's an intern, she doesn't really have a degree behind her name. She is busy with integrated work learning. So she has barely the basics of university, that controlled environment that we talked about of a university, and the university only giving you the substantive matter that's required. You don't have a practical knowledge. Okay, when I started my candidateship, you knew everything that should come into a summons and particulars of claims, but like the practicality of it and lodging it and going to sheriffs and calling sheriffs and like MacGyvering it through the courts, knowing how the administration of court works, addressing people, all that you had to figure out with the assistance of your colleague, Megan. And without her, you have to run around asking other experienced lawyers as well, take pity, I'm a candidate, please direct me in the right direction. You had to figure out how to do things. And when the intern basically came, and now you have to teach her stuff, and you realize she knows just as little as you, even less, due to the fact that she doesn't have that substantive matter that you have from university, which is lacking the practical matter that you're now learning on the go as a candidate. I had to start teaching her, and Megan assisted as well, and we were both stuck because due to the lack of substantive matter, the practical aspect of it was even more difficult. But then you started to realize that where you felt like you know absolutely nothing. I have been doing this candidateship for 4 months now, and I still feel absolutely clueless. I feel like I know exactly what my colleagues want, and I know what I need to do for them. But how annoying should it not be that every time that Megan sends me out to go do something at court or the sheriff or something like that, then I have to call her up in the middle of her workday to ask her, okay, the sheriff just told me this and this and that, and I don't understand. I realized I felt so annoying for 4 months, continuously asking for help. I felt like I can't help myself while I'm helping my colleague. And only when you started helping this intern, you realized you knew more than you actually knew. Okay? For example, you could tell her that if she should ever appear in court, always wear your court gown. Don't make the same mistake I made. And you could tell her, for example, something that I prominently learned was always look for the return of service. Always look for the return of service. There's always an issue with the return of service, okay? Stupid stuff. It's really stupid. But it's like you felt after 4 months calling your colleague, bothering them, that you're not learning anything. You're just bothering them. But then you realize that there's so much to learn, and you expect to be perfect immediately, that you should have everything down to the T now after 4 months. That's not true. That's not true. And you should pay homage to the fact that you don't know how much knowledge you've gathered in such a high-speed environment. That's the thing I don't think candidates know, what a high-speed environment a law firm actually is. So while teaching the intern these silly nitty-gritty little things, those silly nitty-gritty things is enough to stop you to go through with lodging something or doing something in court or wasting your whole day driving to this court to do this. So it taught me patience. It taught me to be a bit softer on myself as well. And I think that's how I'm going to summarize and just finalize my story. It's to say that everything's been confusing. I'm still faced with the fact that you still have 2 years left of your candidateship that you have to do. You still have to do your board exams. You still have to face all these adversities. You've seen what Megan went through, and and starting from scratch again. And it's scary and it's daunting. But you know what? It's so exciting to look back actually and think that 6 years has gone by. And you're looking forward to the following 6 years again. But I have so much more to complain about than other people do. Usually when we have like the braai sessions, there's so much more horror stories that I can tell them. And there's so much more to laugh about. The thing is, I've never felt so accomplished and so behind in my entire life. And if I can tell anybody a message that I don't have this figured out. I don't have a message of hope necessary. My message is that I'm hoping that I can give you hope. But all that I can say is continue and be proud of what you've reached up to this point. And yes, like I'm very excited about, confused and excited because you look back, 6 years has passed. You have 3 degrees behind your name. You had an international opportunity. You just started your candidateship. You're going to do more things. You're now part of this live stream platform as well, the Candidate Attorney Diaries. You're starting with so many exciting things. You're literally feeling yourself advancing, and you can look back on everything that you've achieved up to this point at the same time, as this is a success story. You can feel so behind in life. You can feel so behind in life because Megan and I were joking about it as well. In our firm, for example, I have 3 degrees. You have this and that and that. And I'm in the process of buying my first car now. I'm 27 years old, 3 degrees, but I'm starting my candidateship now where other people are finishing their candidateships, okay? And other people have started their families and other people have bought cars. I'm 27 and I'm in the process of buying my first car. Guys, stop comparing with other people. Stop thinking that's what success looks like and stop disregarding it. This is what I mean about humanizing the process. You're constantly going to feel that you're not doing enough. Stop it. Pause. Turn around. It's not all about you. You are literally, even though you don't wear a cape around your neck every day, getting up and not being bound by the fears that I just talked about. Talking about the fact about not being sure about what you're doing, not sure about everybody's always mad at you, your colleagues are mad at you, your friends are mad at you, your family is mad at you, your clients are mad at you, your director is mad at you, the sheriff is mad at you, everybody is freaking yelling at you, you're tired. I was scared of doing the stream, but that's the point of everything here. You're always going to be scared. And that's where the rugby analogy comes in so freaking great. You're going to get tackled. You're going to get low blowed. Really like low blowed. Like keep pushing forward. Okay? Keep pushing forward. And one quote that's been stuck, and I'm going to finish everything here. Keep pushing forward, but also take a pause where it's necessary to reframe and reflect. And if it's not for you, you have to constantly reevaluate if this is for you. If you feel you have to take a step back, it doesn't mean it's failure. One quote that stuck with me was, listen, if you feel that you are on the wrong track, the longer you continue on the wrong track, the worse it's going to be to try and get off that track. For example, if you're on the wrong train, the longer you're staying on that wrong train, the more expensive a return trip is going to be. So, yet again, it's not about how much you can take on, or how much rejection you should take, or how hard you can bite on your teeth. It's about being honest with yourself, and it's about how you think and phrase changing the world. And that's all that I have to say, basically. And to say thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this. And thank you for coming to my very long TED Talk / Candidate Attorney Diaries. Hi guys, bye guys. Thank you again. Advocate Lisa, please take over before I talk too much again. It's going to turn into 4 hours again.
No, I mean, I can very easily, I can very easily dominate a conversation. So this is a platform for you guys to share your heart, and but as long as people, stick around, and of course it will be up on my YouTube channel. The longer it is, I said that we put something in a story. If we attach a face to it, if we attach feelings to it, then that's those whatever the lessons are, whatever the takeaways are. Especially as females, we attach emotions to things that sometimes don't need emotions attached to them and frustrate the guys. But of course, that helps us. That makes us like super rememberers, that makes us, because we're just able to feel that thing that happened, able to feel the feelings. And so I think, especially for female candidate attorneys, female to female, and of course, you listen to the struggles, and like it'll hit you. The story will hit you in a different way than it might hit a male candidate attorney. So you could have gone on for another half an hour. It would have not been a problem, except that I didn't sleep very well last night. So I was trying the entire time not to yawn, not to yawn. No. It was. Might I say it was for a very productive reason that I didn't sleep. I needed to process some stuff. So, but I was trying my best not to yawn while you were talking, and it can get misconstrued in the worst way. But yeah, I could have let you go on. I mean, this is a platform for you guys, and I think the impetus that of course Megan's created, and now you the second one, and next week we're gonna have Shiamo. She's gonna come on and share her story. The more brave people we have coming forward, again, it's gonna build either a different community among CAs, or it's going to strengthen the community that's already there. Maybe add another dimension. But there's one thing that I've faced in 4 years of dealing with CAs is that no matter how much you promise confidentiality, they are still so gripped by fear and, like you said, losing the voice, that they don't even want to come forward. Even if you say, don't tell me your firm's name, just tell me what happened. They are too scared to even give out that information, even just the story, for fear that their articles will be jeopardized, or their principal won't sign their papers. And of course, you get those rare ones that actually come forward and say, I've had it. I'm at this firm and this is happening, and it's really like, I could give a damn as to who or how who's gonna jeopardize my career, or how it's gonna get jeopardized. What I know is I need to get out. There's a certain way I want to be treated, and it's not happening. So those are the ones that I actually applaud. And of course, it's people like yourself and Megan and Chiamo and the other ones that will come out, because we must add this level of braveness. Or, you can be brave and afraid at the same time. It's understanding what your braveness is going to do for somebody else. Like I shared when we had our call, there's still stuff there's lots of things that I'm still figuring out myself. So you can be very accomplished, or moderately accomplished, and still feel clueless sometimes. So it's okay. That dichotomy is normal. What's important is that you are moving forward, and you are moving forward sometimes afraid. You're moving forward with less confidence than you would like, but you are pushing forward. You're pushing forward, and you're saying, I'm going to do things maybe that are outside my comfort zone. I'm going to find my voice for something or someone that is not within my immediate sphere of influence. So like you said, it's not about you. So sometimes So for me, that drives me. I can see it as additional pressure, but sometimes when I don't want to show up, um, the fact that I have, you know, thousands of people, at least on LinkedIn, depending on me, and I know there'll be DMs to answer, especially on a Monday morning. There'll be connection requests to accept or ignore, depending on who it is. Um, and it's like I'm not allowed. Like I have this sort of bigger purpose outside of myself. So if CAs start to realize that level of social responsibility, then of course we're going to be sharing our stories and we're going to be sharing the stuff. We're going to have that psychological safety. That's ultimately, I think, if I could just distill it to a broad objective, is to create psychological safety on Instagram for CA so that they can feel free not only to share successes. And my podcast also does this. Like, I don't want to only hear, we don't want to showcase people that are highly successful and, people that are like so high in the heavens, you can't touch them. We want to also showcase people that messed up, people that failed, people that maybe tried law and said, no, either going to create my own kind of legal career or I'm leaving the profession. So we want to also, CAs will also feel free to talk about the times that I screwed up. And the reality is, as you pointed out, you're going to have to be kind to yourself because you are going to screw up.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
It's an objective reality for anyone starting at a new level. So whether it's your first year as a candidate, whether it's your first year of university, whether it's your first year of marriage, whether it's your first year being a parent, the potential for screw ups are magnanimous.
It's
It's almost
unavoidable.
limitless. It's
It's
unavoidable,
unavoidable.
right? So you got to create that space as a CA to make that mistake. And a lot of the times, what happens is because the principal attorneys have unrealistic expectations, because they lack empathy most of the time. So they can't put themselves in the position of I was once a student and I knew nothing. So they will have these unrealistic expectations, and because of the pressure, and like you said, um, you can't give up because you seem to be failing. So what
Yes.
you'll do is you'll default on the side of gaslighting yourself. She'll say, "Oh, my principal expected me to know this. I should have known it. I am the dumb one. He was right to scold me and to, tear me to shreds in front of the rest of the staff or whatever." So that self gaslighting is actually, in my opinion, it's worse than somebody gaslighting you externally. So you gotta understand. Even you spoke about understanding the limits of your role. So if there's a matter that you don't feel comfortable, and if you look at it from a client's perspective, if would you as a client want your matter culpable homicide, and as you rightly mentioned, he's dealing with a person's life, it's going to drastically change their life if they are found guilty. Okay, so you're looking at putting somebody away in prison, that's going to limit their right to freedom. So it's huge. It's not just knowing criminal procedure and
It's
how to stand up in court. There's different stages of the trial, and of course, if your client gets convicted, then of course, that's that, right? And sometimes if you are not experienced or you don't have expertise, you can sometimes screw up the defense, whereas somebody more experienced would have maybe argued better and got them off, right? Or maybe got a
definitely.
lower sentence, right? So there's that ethical side of things where, because you're joining a burgeoning practice that doesn't have time to onboard you, doesn't have time, like you said, to hold your hand, doesn't have time for you to knock on your principal's door and say, please help me understand. Um, from a client's perspective, you will be terrified as an accused person if your matter were put into the hands of someone that just joined the firm, fresh out of university. Okay,
Exactly. Very fast.
baby faced. I mean, I was in the same position, right? But of course, like with me, I just had to like hug my tackler and just keep moving forward. Like, short person, I had to just, I couldn't push them down. I wasn't taller than them, so I had to like just embrace the challenge and keep moving forward. But I don't know what my clients even thought of me, even though I was advocate so and so, and I was appointed by legal aid to defend him, and I had the gown, I had the bib, I was there standing up in the Durban High Court. But I don't know what those guys thought of me, and I always defended males. So they probably didn't feel very very comfortable, but at least I had the qualification, right? So imagine if you are handling something that you're not admitted yet, you just started your candidate attorney journey, and you're thrown into that. So it creates risk for the firm. It creates risk for you as a professional, as a future professional. So you have to find your voice and say, look, Mr. So and so or Mr. Principal Attorney, I'm not qualified to handle this case, right? You
And
have to be able to say that. The eagerness to impress is what sometimes gets CAs into trouble.
it
But it's
is.
really a
And I
it's really an ethical matter. It's not so much that, oh, you'll just do the case and then the file will be closed and then that's that. Okay,
exactly, and that's
if
actually
you if,
I don't want to. I don't want any candidate to feel like that in the end because, like I said, it is. I promised myself from the beginning I would never do when I started studying. I would never do criminal matters because I was always scared of the risk outweighing each other
yeah,
or the ethical conundrum. And not only that, like it does compromise you. It did
yeah,
compromise you. The fact that the expectation of like performing this your first appearance, I should have been vocal from the get-go of. And that's the
yeah.
thing. So
No, but you
finding that
learn.
voice,
I
and
mean,
I'm so happy with
you
having that
learn.
firm where I could actually be heard and where I could tell them, listen, I don't have the expertise to do this. You don't have the time or you yourself are not specializing in it.
Yeah,
So that I was heard to have that matter referred because we're gambling with somebody's life, and I
life.
don't want any attorney.
Exactly.
Everybody should ever see this video. Don't do that. It looks good on your portfolio, but you need to
Mm,
remember that your actions have a direct impact on your client, whether that be you're gambling with their life or their finances or just the
yeah.
personal outcome of anything. So I won't interrupt again. I just
Mm,
want to say for everybody listening here, don't ever do that. Speak up. I had an amazing principal who listened. She stepped
yeah.
in to help me with the matter, but don't be clouded by the fame. Don't be clouded by expectations.
Mm,
Remember your limits. Remember what you're
yeah,
capable of. You're just starting now. Sorry, Advocate
yeah.
Lisa.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So I mean, it's not just that you are inexperienced, or it's an ethical issue. So
Mm.
it's and of course, different types of matters carry different kinds of risk. But in my opinion, there's no greater risk than the potential to put somebody in jail or to screw up a matter so badly that if you could have done it better, they would have stayed out. So, and of course, there's it's unnecessary stress. Okay,
It
thing for you
is.
to learn on it's one thing for you to learn, say, something like legal drafting on the job, right? That your principal can manage that risk in house. There can be people checking your work and before it's actually issued and served and filed. So that risk can be managed internally fairly easily. But it's something where it's like in court every day, and I mean even something like a divorce trial. You don't want to be running
Mm.
something like that. One of my colleagues commented on another colleague's post on LinkedIn, and she's like, "Why do attorneys leave the CAs to deal with the experts? The experts in a family law case, you're gonna have the social worker. My colleague's a social worker. We did a webinar recently where we sort of looked at the intersection between like almost like collaborative law, where you've got the lawyer, you've got the social worker. It's this interdisciplinary approach. And she was lamenting to that colleague who posted what he did. Why do firms always leave the CAs to deal with the experts, like the expert, like the family advocate or the child psychologist or the ballistics expert? Like they are not qualified to do that.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
if it
that's so difficult to where you should find your voice, finding traction and navigating
yeah.
these intricacies. And I think that is something that that comes in with the fact that I think attorneys, and I think because that's something that my colleague also told me,
Mm-hmm.
they forget the fact that they how it was to be a candidate, for example. They remember, okay, so they're used to court procedure, they're used to talking
Mm-hmm.
to this person or dealing with experts and stuff like that, basically. So they're so used to it up to this point where they're tired, basically. And they
Yeah.
just assume that candidates have that same level of knowledge or should be able to do it as well as they, maybe not as well, but should be able to handle that situation. I think they
Mm-hmm.
forget how scary it is to go from university to practice actually. And it's true, this like candidate attorneys how now having to deal with the experts and I feel like that's something I'm going to tell every candidate here as well. You're going to have to be able to navigate these situations,
Mm-hmm.
but please speak up. Please speak up where
Yeah.
it's necessary.
Yeah.
See if you can shadow someone before you do something like that, because that's something that I had opportunity as well with. Before dealing with the experts, I asked if I couldn't have a sit-in session or
Mm-hmm.
where I should shadow rather so that I can have that experience, but I don't waste other people's time due to my
Mm-hmm.
inexperience. But the thing is, you're
Yeah.
going to have to be honest with yourself and with your principal, your firm, everybody about what you're
Mm-hmm.
capable of and what you're not capable of. And don't feel
Yeah.
ashamed, but
Yeah.
try.
Uh,
But try.
and look, the thing is, the reality is that clients, they see candidate attorneys as inferior. Okay, so again, that's another sort of a sticky part where, they might even, and because I worked at two law firms, and the first one I had to train the CAs by default because the director was never there. So I had three Indian female 20 somethings. One came in with a master's degree. The two of them hadn't even graduated yet. And then there were times when, of course, the director was not there. A client would walk in and they'd want to consult on something, and we introduce the CA and we say, this is a CA and I'm going to be doing the consultation, but the CA is going to be sitting in because they're learning. The clients will say we don't not comfortable with the CA being there.
Mm.
Okay, because remember, they're coming because maybe they have a certain trust in the name on the door,
Competency.
right? The
Yeah.
brand or the attorney's name or whatever. So sometimes they might say, look, we don't want, in effect, we don't want you to be sitting here. And as a CA, you can't take that personally. You obviously, in your own right, have to build up your own professional reputation and, let the client warm up to you. And maybe somewhere down the line, if it's a new matter, you may eventually get to sit in or maybe even do a consultation by yourself.
Mm.
So, I just thought I'll throw that in there because it's related, where the CA is not trusted in terms of the expertise anyway by the
Mm.
client. So if a client is forced into a situation where the CA is handling the culpable homicide matter, okay, that CA is going to be uncomfortable. The client may make it more uncomfortable for the CA because
Mm.
the client wants the main attorney to be involved, but now the CA has
Mm.
been assigned.
Mm.
So it just creates a whole lot of unnecessary tension in the professional relationship. So for that reason as well, you want to take a step back. You want to always be prepared to take a step back. So never put yourself out there as being, I'm a candidate attorney. You're not an attorney
Yes.
yet.
No,
Okay. So
no, I have a
emphasis,
long
so
way to go.
emphasis is on candidates, or I think an intern will be a better word. Okay. Because I think candidate attorney tends to also mislead the public.
It
They think that,
is.
oh, you're an attorney, you're just like a junior attorney, which is not the case. Right? But generally, clients are wary of CAs. Clients are wary of interns and all of those kinds of positions. So if they don't trust you with the matter as well, even if you're they might insist that your principal, and of course that's an embarrassment to your principal if he or she puts it on you, and then the client says, no, no, I actually want you to deal with it. It kind of boomerangs back to your attorney. But you gotta always be prepared generally to kind of sit, ride shotgun, take the second chair, be prepared to stand in the consultation, let the client sit, let your principal sit. So you do have an inherently inferior position in the firm, but of course that doesn't mean that you don't project yourself, you don't speak up for yourself, you don't allow yourself to be treated as a doormat. But yeah, I just threw that in there because sometimes your principal might assign you something, but the client might not have the confidence in you, and rightly so. So
Definitely.
if somebody doesn't trust me as a candidate attorney, even as a pupil advocate, I have to say, cool, I get it. If I were in your position, I would not trust me as well because I don't know myself how I'm going to deal with this. I'm probably going to have to ask a lot of people along the way. So you don't want that stress of having to, you got to say, okay, this client's life is in my hands. And now if I don't ask anybody or don't ask the right people, if I don't go and do extra research, it's like all this unnecessary stress which can be avoided if you just speak up. And of course, you don't have to always take the personal angle. You can say things like, I feel it's going to be a great professional risk to the firm if I mess it up. Because
Exactly. That's exactly what I
ultimately,
do.
the principal is responsible for the risk management in the firm. So that whole fidelity fund certificate situation, that is in the event that yes, it gives you a license to practice. People see the certificate, but if anything goes wrong, um, that's the fund where the attorneys will claim from. It's an indemnity kind of thing. But you know how insurance works, right? If it's your fault, then you're not going to be indemnified against the risk. So if you create that,
Exactly.
and of course you might even make yourself uninsurable because the risk is so great, your premium will be too high. You're not worth taking on as a client if if you're selling insurance or buying insurance. So, you can always pitch it to your principal like that. Like, I feel like it will create too much risk for the firm and, it might not be covered by the Fidelity Fund certificate where we're going to create the risk and stand a chance of not being covered or them rejecting our claim, and then we'll have to pay out of pocket from the firm. So
Definitely.
it has a whole lot of implications. I don't want to bore everybody with law firm risk management, but if you want to pitch it at a different level as a CA, you don't have to say, you know what, I'm a dummy, I don't know anything. You can also pitch it from, hey, you know what, I'm thinking about the firm, so it's going to be really risky if I run this trial, or if I uh, do this criminal matter, or if I do this bail application or whatever, it's going to be really risky for the firm. And I'm afraid that if I screw it up, the firm may not be able to claim, from the indemnity fund for if there are any potential, malpractice claims brought by the client. And something else I want to touch on that, of course, you brought up so many points. We could easily sit here for 4 hours, but I think you brought up about peer mentorship.
Sorry about
Megan also
that.
brought it. Um, Megan also brought that up about you guys have this little union thing going on, and I was like, whoa, I'm scared. I'm not gonna mess with you guys. Like you have a whole like a labor union situation there, But
So
that's and
we have
I posted about it last week on Sunday on LinkedIn. This whole thing about besides it being a professional setup, this whole thing about social connection, um, pushing you through any kind of adversity. I know in the Bible it says that a brother is born for the day of adversity. That means you'll know who your friends are when it's difficult. When they say when days are dark, friends are few. But the flip side is also true. You'll know who your real friends are when the rubber meets the road, when the stakes are high. like your ride or dies. You know those people. You never underestimate that as CAs because, and I always say, you guys are your own best support structure. There are people like myself, others. We are a little bit, we are willing, but we are removed from the situation. You guys are in it
Mm.
every day, ins and outs. We probably don't
And
know
we
half
take
of
things together.
what you guys go through, and you just like you're saying, just to have just for someone to knock on the door like a senior person and say, you know what, Annie, I don't know what to do myself. I
Mm.
mean, that just it just does something to your whole your what you
Like we
say,
said, humanizing it a bit, just to say, like, I
yeah,
just think that's the thing that I want to come to a conclusion about because even though, for example, the ethical situation of that whole thing, if I did not have community with my colleague, I would not have been
hmm,
able to, like I said, starting as a candidate,
yeah,
I did not have that much of a voice. So you were just trying to meet expectations as best as possible. And
mm-hmm,
having that community with Megan, for example, that helped me because I could voice these concerns. I could voice the stress that this was causing me and the fact that I
yeah,
was scared about gambling with somebody's life. And she could assist me and say, let's refer this matter to a firm that specializes in criminal law. So we mitigated that. But
yeah,
also, it's necessary for this community in the sense that not only to be heard, but to encourage you to have a voice. So much so, I was scared to have petrol claims in the beginning. And in the beginning, I was so scared just to claim my petrol for going up and down to do my job. And without that community to support me and say, listen, without Megan there as well to say, go and claim your
mm,
petrol. You have to do that to push you up
mm,
and just so that fear shouldn't be that ball and chain anymore. And it became
mm,
such a great thing of us whole the whole building basically. If one of us is just overwhelmed, frustrated, whatever, let's just go for a walk and get a coffee. You know what? Let's just go do that.
absolutely,
It's
yeah,
important because, like I said, there's this poison in the industry where we think we have to constantly take a notch at one another so
mm,
that we can so that we can advance instead of seeing that we can actually help each other with our shortcomings. Yes, like I'm a CA, I am totally at the bottom of a food chain here, but you know what? I'm willing and I'm here and I want to learn. And just to have people who knows how that felt like and to
mm-hmm,
pass down that secondhand knowledge, but not only to learn from them, to know that you have people that will stick up for you. That was something that I have never experienced in my even in my university years. And I know
mm-hmm,
that little firms have what I'm describing now. And
mm,
that's what I know Megan's initiative and what your initiative is so we can instill this. We can try and open up the conversation, not only for females, because even though female candidate attorneys have worse, there's also a male aspect to it as well. There's stories. There's so much that needs to be heard about this. We need to be
mm-hmm,
open and talk about this, and also just to stop glamorizing the idea because over glamorizing this profession is actively leading to the downfall of your mental health and instilling that imposter syndrome within you. And I
mm-hmm,
think that's all that I have to say about this. So, yes,
mm,
I'm happy to say I have a community and we will fight till the end for whatever is necessary, whether that be our clients' best interest or whether that
mm,
be just the well-being of our colleagues. But that's a culture
yeah,
that needs to extend beyond our firm. And that's what we want to achieve with this platform. We want other attorneys, other candidates to have this as well. Reach
mm,
out, be a part of the community, talk about it. You're not
yeah.
alone.
Because I mean that's the trick that your brain plays on you. You there's no one else going through, and it can create such a victim mentality
Mm.
that woe is me. I have a unique problem. Nobody knows how to help me, so I'll just be quiet. And I say, look, you can, like I encouraged on my post last week. You need to strengthen your position. So if you are having a hard time as a CA, maybe you're the only CA in the firm. Try to network with the firms, the CAs that are nearby. it doesn't only have to be for like a study group or for board exams or for anything formal. Like you said, sometimes you just need to get your crap together and go and have a drink. You need to get
Just a
out of the
coffee.
environment. You need to get out of the environment. And like you also touched on, get to know each other as people. So it's not just you're there for the office stuff and it's the matters and you are researching together. That's another level of your relationship. But the first level of your relationship, CA to CA, and a lot of CAs want to never network like with other people, like people higher up, which is fine, but don't neglect the community that's there with your own kind.
Mm.
And you don't have to always have a formal relationship with them. It can be like just, I mean, the guys and the girls, or the union going out for a march or something, the doing a protest outside, just burning off some energy,
Either way,
like,
like, if there's chaos, we're going through the chaos together. We're either instigating the chaos or we're going through the chaos together. The point is, there needs to
yeah,
be a togetherness.
yeah, and that's a nice thing or the refreshing thing about even hearing from Megan, from yourself, with that proposal that we're going to work on. Like, we're all putting our heads together and even if we don't create the revolution, at least we're making a noise about it. We're doing things like these diaries. I've got my podcast. I haven't got an idea to do like a little CV kind of showcase on my podcast where, random people get to come and I get to interview them and then they get to take that as some kind of like a resume type thing. I don't know. Probably getting myself into trouble by saying it out loud, but you know, just anything to ultimately add value and of course to empower and create or strengthen the community that's already forming. Um, and the thing with me is that I don't I'm not partial to seniors and I'm not partial to juniors. So everyone's a colleague. Everyone gets scolding from me if I feel they need scolding. I take some
Good.
correction sometimes, right? That's part of the community, it's not just the friendly side of things. Like pull yourself together or stop playing
Yes.
the victim or you can do this. You know more than you think you know. Just put pen to paper and start writing and surprise yourself.
Mm.
You need friends to come and tell you that. Like you're saying, until you had to teach the intern. And that's another case of peer mentorship where I find even with myself, starting to tell my story, share my journey, mentor people, I didn't realize how much I actually know until I started saying it. And they'll be like, like, where did you
No,
learn this? Who taught you? And then I will hear myself on playback and I'll be like, yo, like I
that
had
just
all this. Imagine if I chose not to, if I kept my voice quiet. And so sometimes when you are put in that position where you are in effect paying it forward to what Megan did for you, you're paying it forward to the intern. And I mean, there's a lot that can happen in 4 months. There's a lot that you can learn. You can share personal, stories or how, you're developing as a person. You can share the legal skills that you're learning. Even the workplace dynamics, which is another kettle of fish that CAs don't know how to handle, like employee relations and office gossip and conflict resolution, all those things. Like there's so many areas that you might have been learning in simultaneously, and because it's happening all at the same time, you still feel like you don't know anything. But you'll be surprised. That intern will come and say, you know what, I have this, and you'll be like, okay, this is what I did. Like every time they have a problem, you'll find that, oh, I have an answer for this, or I have an answer for that, or maybe I don't have an answer for that. Go and ask Megan. Megan had an experience. Well, ask her.
yeah.
But if you don't start talking about what you're learning, and that's why I also encourage CAs to keep a professional journal at the office. So at the end of the day, or maybe at the end or after an incident or some kind of a teachable moment, maybe you got some feedback or you had a difficult client, you'll say, what did I learn about myself? and what do I have to improve, and or even the legal skills, like, where did I mess up? Okay, now I see my error. What can I do to prevent it going forward? And I say leave that book there for the incoming CA, so that when they leave, when you leave, right? Say, imagine if
You can see
you
the
came
mistakes
you
you
came
made.
after Megan left, right? And she left
Yes.
a book there with everything that she's told you during her, like, you guys having had one-on-one contact. If she left a book, a 288-page book with all that behind, right? And you're like, what's this? Like, the CA, mistakes I made as a CA that you don't have to make.
I think
Here's it for you.
I
It's
think
all in a gift
that's
bag and
legitimately
what.
where she got her idea from. She just came to my office and she was like, you know what? I want to write a survival guide for how
Yeah, she does.
candidates can
Yeah,
survive this, basically. So
but you know
it
what?
is.
The nice thing about that journal is that it's not like you're writing it because you have to write a book. You wrote every day. You put something in there. There was some kind of reflection where you felt stupid, where you were
Yes.
gaslighting yourself, where you learn how to find your voice, you learn how to assert yourself. And imagine paging, like a CA just comes into the firm. In their first week, they take that book home and they start flipping through it. Imagine what a head start that will be. And it's like, again, it's like you're paying it forward. So if anyone can want to take that idea, you're welcome to do that. It's not a patented thing. It's for the sake of community, for the sake of making this arduous journey as a CA little bit more bearable, right? And I guess just using your story, like we're using these stories on these lives to empower people, because we tend to remember things when it's put into a story. So
Mm.
I think that's a good place to land the plane. Otherwise, how we will carry on and on and on. But we can definitely do a part two. Maybe do like a spontaneous thing, or like it doesn't have to be CA related. I'm sure our other ramblings can be of value to other people as well.
Yes,
Might be a better use of 4 hours if we have other people that are benefiting from it. So thank you so much, Annie, and of course, um, the two of you are fast becoming, allies, and I think we're going to meet on Monday to discuss the proposal,
mm,
because I've got some ideas as to how I can sort of marry that with what I'm currently doing with my volunteer projects and the Candidate Attorney Advocacy Group. So we can, I'm looking forward to troubleshooting those
it's,
ideas.
it's exciting times.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And of course, we're creating awareness. We are finding our voices. Um, you know, we are establishing or creating community. We're building a community of, and ultimately, when you guys get older in the profession, it's like, oh, you remember when we were on Candidate Attorney Diaries and how we sounded then? Like, go watch the videos, and you know, and then it's like, okay, we're still doing that. Like, you should still be doing that, like 10, 20 years in, where it's like, no, you're still mentoring people, you're sharing your journey, you're a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. You're a work in progress. The dangerous place to arrive is at a plateau. Okay,
Mm.
you don't want to be in the platteland. You don't want to be in the where it's flat and it's easy and the path is straight and you can see ahead of you. If you ever reach that point in your journey, whichever stage you're at, then of course it's a cause for alarm, in the sense that you need to start challenging yourself. If nobody's challenging you on the outside, put yourself in something that is a bit rocky, that rocks your boat a bit. Because again, it's a growing experience. And if you are noting down after the fact what you are learning, then of course other people can also benefit from your rocky experience. So I think on that note, um, we can end it. So thank you, Annie. Um, And of course, to those that stuck around, well done. The video will be uploaded, I'm hoping this weekend. I've got some maintenance to do on my YouTube channel. So you can search for Law Mom Lisa, LEWMOM LISA, and you can catch my live there with Megan. That was last week. This one should be up by tomorrow or Monday. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of other types of videos there. So you can subscribe and binge watch those videos. I can't
And
guarantee it's better than Netflix, but you certainly won't be poor. You certainly won't be less enlightened after you've. And of
well,
course, please feel free to suggest things in the DMs if you want us to talk about certain topics. If you like certain guests that I have on, you can get into my DMs and on here on Instagram, and you can suggest topics, suggest guests. If you yourself want to punch yourself as a guest, feel free. We're creating community. We're opening the conversation. We're creating psychological safety for CAs, and I'm hoping that you'll be one of the brave ones that will come out and, if not for yourself, do it for the greater good of those that are coming after you.
I just wanted to say to end things from my side. Thank you so much, Advocate Lisa, for not only giving me a platform to voice my experiences and to help me build the confidence and share these experiences so that you can be released from fear, but also for creating this platform for so many other candidates and helping with not only our involvement in this, but by truly extending yourself to hear these stories and also to make sure that we should not be held back by fear, and fear should not only be due to inexperience, because being inexperienced feeds your fear, and fear then leads to that and that and that, and you're just caught in the cycle. So thank you for breaking the cycle. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak, and I'm so excited to have a meeting with you tomorrow, on Monday. Sorry, my brain's already on game. Tomorrow is Monday. I forgot it's Monday. But I'm so excited for the meeting and to see what comes. And again, thank you for listening to this very long talk, having this discussion with me, and sticking it out.
It's my pleasure. No, the one day I don't do meetings, you're talking about having a meeting. Oh, if I could just not talk for one day, it'd be good. Um, but of course, my voice, I have to get insurance on my voice now. Monday to Saturday is just yap, yap, yap. So no meeting tomorrow. It's still the long weekend. So I'm trying, for once I was aware it was a long weekend. So I'm sort of trying to appreciate and trying to live in it, live in the moment. So, thank you. So thank you, everyone. And you can catch the replay on my YouTube channel at Law Mom Lisa.